Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, the screenwriting step-by-step project, episode number 40, which is really hard to believe. I have done 40 of these already, but we are getting close to the end of the outline, which is kind of cool. Every Monday through Friday, if I can do it, I will be here at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time in order to show you how I write a script, starting from the outline, moving all the way through a pilot script. This is not the only way to write. I am not saying this is a formula for how to write. I am just trying to demystify the writing process so that you can try and figure out how you would do it. Just showing you step by step all the fumbles and explorations and things that one does while one writes a script. I am also here for Ask Me Anything. You can do it in the comments if you are here live, but if you are not, you can still ask a question. Go to writingforscreens.com and click on the Contact Me button, which is just about every page, and then you can ask me a question. It will get directly to me, and I will try and answer it either through email or on here, depending on what it is and how it'll work. Likewise, if you don't feel like doing that, you can just ask the question here in the comments. I will do my best to answer either there in the comments or here on live stream when I next live stream. That's it. That's how it works. You can do it in the comments of any video on my channel. I get all those comments. So let's just get to work here. Hello to 99 Precinct. Hello to Wolf Powers. Hello to everyone else who is watching. It is good to see you all here. It is good to be back. Over the weekend, I looked through the outline and truthfully, I'm getting to a spot where I could probably start to write the script. I wouldn't necessarily advise anyone do it. There's a lot of big, loose, undecided things there, and they're going to be problems down the road. But because you guys are watching over my shoulder and I don't have the luxury to just draw this out and dawdle, I'm thinking of plunging in pretty soon. So therefore, I took a look at the overview, which I have not looked at in a while. The overview, for those of you who have not learned this or forgotten it, is sort of the things that I write to give myself the big picture of the project. The overview, so to speak. It's where I have your basic character summaries, the basic outline shape, not the outline itself, but what I call the major moves, the big sections of the story. Or I write down any notes about how I want to write it or what I think it's about. So let's take a look at that. Hello to Kirby Light. Okay. So what I did was I thought, I have not looked at this. We've made a lot of changes, and so I wanted to look through it. And this also brings up a big topic which I have to work on. We need a title. I need to figure out a title for this thing, but that's not right now. I started to just clean this document up. What I like is to have it be something that's just like the cheat cards, the cue cards for this show. If I was going to say, what is it about? Who are the characters? This is my notes to myself. So I cleaned them up a little bit. This is just sort of general philosophy about what it's like. And then I moved down, I threw out a bunch of stuff, and then I got into the characters, the big central story, and I tried to analyze that. This will be on my website. You can download a copy if you want to read it all in detail. But this is sort of an analysis of the central relationship of Madeline and Norman, which I spent like weeks on weeks back in the 1s through 10s of this, the 1s through 20s, figuring out what's the story of these two people, because while Madeline is probably a little more central in the murder plot, In the relationship plot, they are equal, and the relationship is really what this is about. The murder mystery, the suspense thriller, is kind of an excuse to explore questions about people and feelings. And those main people and feelings are Madeline and Norman. Hello, yes, I am green screenable. It is, if you want to remove my body and put in a pattern of some kind, you probably can do it. There's a lot of talk about it. Yes, I will get to that. So here we've got a sort of summary of the relationship, which is a summary of the story. It's about what Madeline and Norman want in their lives, what they fear and what they need. And then the real secret is each helps or provokes the other to do the thing they need. That's what this story is about. These people who come together with all this weird pressure on them, and they're forced together by circumstances and their personalities, and they turn out to be really good for each other, and that is the story. So then I just like to type what I call models, things to look at, things to say, this is what I kind of, in a way, think this is going to be like, in shape, in tone, in genre, somehow or other. And this is just a bunch of movies and shows that were on my mind. Slither, by the way, is not the horror film. It is a weird, offbeat little road movie from the 1970s with James Caan, Peter Boyle, and Sally Kellerman. I will talk more about that sometime. So then I got into the characters, and I just tried to clean this up a little. It's all stuff I had talked about before, and so then I got to Madeline, and I thought, I was sort of summarizing her. I was putting down just who she is. She's a data analysis supervisor for a big financial services company. She lives in Fort Lee, New Jersey, which, if you are not from the New York area, is right on the river facing New York City. So it's New York adjacent. She is practical, optimistic, and engaged. Well, I got to that line, and I thought, I like that. I like the idea that there's this woman who's got it all together, and then this thing comes out of nowhere and hits her and destabilizes her and makes her question her whole life. That is her story. And I thought, we need to see that. Before we get into how she's destabilized, we need to see the stable version. We're not going to get it that well if we don't see the person who is being changed. It is possible to do that. I have mixed feelings about starting with normal. I've talked about that before. But in this case, I thought if we don't actually show it, there's no reason for the audience to know it. You don't show it, they don't know it. That's a slogan for you. So that made me think that I should go to the outline, and here, when it says we meet Madeline, I realized we have to add a scene. We can't just meet Madeline showing up at the crime scene. That focuses the story on the crime. And the truth is, I don't want the audience to think this is all about the crime. This story is about the people who are drawn in to the crime, especially Madeline and Norman. So I think we need to meet Madeline in her life to see what is getting disrupted, how she is content, optimistic, and safe. One of the things I want to make clear is, until this moment that we meet her, she has been actually kind of happy in a very restricted way. She has said, I'm going to stay in a safe zone. I'm going to get a safe job and live a safe life. And especially, I am not going to get involved romantically with anyone, because the last time I did that, it was rough. It was bad. George was an exciting experience, but a scary one for her. That's a story that we talked about. That's the story I have of Madeline's life. So I need a specific scene, a scene at work. And at first I thought, we'll see her like getting a whole bunch of things thrown at her and she just handles them all. I don't know if that's going to end up being the scene, because honestly, it takes a long time to to make clear the things that are being thrown at her, and they don't really matter. So maybe it will be that something is going wrong, or maybe it will be her talking about it. I don't know. I just know that we need to have a scene at work, or and then showing her life, and then she gets the call about George. Hello, Maria. Good to see you again. So basically, the thing about this is we're going to start with George. We're going to start with George and the serial killer, and it's all sort of creepy serial killer murder mystery, and then he dies, and then we go to this other thing, and we don't know the connection, and that's going to be kind of fun. The idea that we know that there's going to be some reason that we see this person, but we don't know yet why. Why are we seeing this woman who seems to have nothing to do with it? Maria asks, what does she do for a living? I will tell you. It's here in the overview. She is a data analysis supervisor for a giant financial services company. In an earlier episode, I had talked about the idea of giving her a job that was very, very safe. That was very, very, these are the numbers, you crunch them, that's it. There's no drama in her life. She doesn't want drama. She wants security, and that's what she's gotten. She is practical, optimistic, and engaged. She is not a frightened person because she has made her life safe, so she doesn't have to be frightened. She hasn't been frightened in 30 years. Okay. Perfect. I think so too. So anyway, so I made this note about what I'm going to do. Now this totally changes the outline. This is a whole new piece of the outline that comes after George is murdered and before we get to the crime scene. So it's a big hunk of not yet ready. But it's exciting to know that it's a good choice. And this is something that's probably worth stepping out of the page to talk about. All the way through this process, including after the first draft, you always will discover things you need to change. You do not write an outline to lock anything in. You write an outline to keep from losing stuff and to have a place to work to figure stuff out. But that's all it is. An outline is not some kind of weird form that you can never change. It's constantly changing. It is ever adapting as you create. That is why I think of the outline as a creative thing to do. The outline is the work in progress. That's literally what it is. Because when you're working on the text, you're in the woods. You're looking at the tree by tree by tree. The outline is a chance to get out and look at the whole forest. Wow, was that like snazzy imagery there? Hello, Ekene. Glad that you could make it. It is great to see all of you guys here. What we're talking about is I having gone roughly through the outline beginning to end in the past week, I wanted to look at the overview. And the overview is that summary of the characters and the big picture of the story. And when I did that, I realized we need to rethink the outline a bit because I had missed a step. I had missed a step where we get to understand who Madeline is before she gets messed up by George's murder, by all these people being so crazy around her. So having shown you that, I can take it out. The point about Madeline is that the events of this story make her want to change her life. She has been safe, but she has been stuck, and she didn't know it because it was safe. That can happen. You can make a choice that solves one problem, but then as your life goes on, the solving of that problem actually creates other problems. That is a psychological truth as far as I'm concerned. And one of the big things you want to do when you're writing is be psychologically true. Observe humanity and portray it, which is going to bring us to our next topic. Because Um, Marie's got a note about her. She could be following the latest hoopla about GameStop trading. Yes, that is true. People did, and they did, I think, briefly save GameStop. I don't know if GameStop is permanently saved. I don't think I personally want to get into a specific financial deal because the whole point of finance for her is that it's like staying in the castle. It's like staying on the island. It's safety. And in fact, she doesn't care that much about the company. That's why she does the job, because I'm just analyzing data. I am looking at graphs and explaining it to executives. And that actually gets into the whole point I wanted to bring up today, which is notes, because Maria just gave me a note. What if? How about this? Can you change this? And last week, I got a fascinating comment through the website from a viewer who prefers to remain anonymous, which I completely understand. And he, aside from enjoying the live stream a lot, had notes on the story, which he wanted to give me in detail. I am going to, hang on, I'm going to try and turn off. I have to figure out how to do this. Well, let me see. There we go. Okay, show. Not current application. Not even. Oh, you know what? I'll just not do that. Okay. Basically, I'm gonna read some of these very detailed notes, but I do not want to I do not want to expose him. I also do not particularly, I do not want to criticize these notes, because one of the most important things is, just like with Maria's notes and other people's notes who have come through the comments, it's really important to learn how to deal with notes and to not make it adversarial. Notes are a big part of being a screenwriter, a much bigger part of being a screenwriter than almost any other kind of writer. You get a lot of notes. So I want to talk about that. The first thing I want to do is talk about the specific notes, because they're actually interesting and thought-provoking. I'm going to read them out loud. I'm not going to show you, because, like I said, I don't want to pick on notes. I want to actually take them. I have to tell you, though, that I have one big problem with the story so far. The group is planning to break into Mad's house and steal from her. This is a crime, and they are discussing it in a public, or at least semi-public, forum. And if Norm's in there, it's public enough. Small note, Norm is one of the group. They don't know that he is, in fact, critiquing them and observing them. He is embedded. He is undercover. But nonetheless, it is a public forum. They're putting this all out on their Zoom and their billboards and things. Although this is not the things that happen are happening in Zoom, which is semi-private. I mean, somebody could be recording it and releasing it. Any one of these people who fails to report this to the police is potentially an accessory to the crime. The police may not be interested, in the killer, but they may definitely be interested in this. Maybe you want them all to be really stupid, and that's your choice, but there are implications down the road. In any case, Norm's best move would be to make a copy of the transcript on the internet meeting and send it to the police in Mad's area. If he doesn't, he's asking for big trouble if things go wrong, and knowing TV, I'm sure things will go wrong. After notifying the police, then he might want to contact Mad himself and tell her what's going on. But boy, is he going about things in the wrong way. Yes, definitely, he is going about things in the wrong way. That is true. Most of the time, when you write fiction, you are writing about people going about things in the wrong way. That's why we're telling the story. Sometimes you tell a story of someone going about things in the right way, but you'd be surprised how much you don't. Also, I have a problem with Mad too, he says. I would think that after being contacted by 3 different strangers, Mad, even drunk, is going to be more than a little suspicious of Norm. Yeah, that's fair. And why is she so upset about the death of a man she's had nothing to do with for decades? It talks about a similar experience, not with being married to someone, but being close to someone and then not seeing them for 20 years and being somewhat sad but when hearing about their death, but not being going crazy, getting drunk and stuff, and would not. I certainly didn't get drunk about it, and would not have collapsed into the arms of a stranger who just happened to show up at my door. So I've been wondering what Mad's unfinished business with this ex-husband is, because in my opinion, she's way overreacting. In parentheses, and is it even legally possible, to make someone the executor of your estate without knowledge or consent? These are really good questions, good things to think about. Hold on, let's just see. You said in the pilot outline she married at 18, and in the overview she married at 19. Is it normal? You mean, is it normal to make mistakes and not coordinate? Yes, that's normal. It's normal to not. That's why you constantly, I was saying earlier, I had to go back to the overview, which I hadn't looked at in weeks, and I found all sorts of references to Zach. Zach is now Xena. I changed Zach's gender, and I didn't always catch it in the notes, in one document or the other. Yes, these are notes, these are sketches, these are work documents. They're full of mistakes, they're full of weird phrasings, they're full of experiments and explorations. As you go through it, hopefully you clean it up, but not too much, because honestly, most of this stuff no one will ever see. I like to clean up the overview because I keep going back to it. The outline, honestly, once I've typed through a scene, just delete it. I don't care. It's, I save a copy, but it's not important to keep these things right. No one is looking. It's just for you. Okay. Now, so let's talk a little bit more about these notes. As I explained to the person who wrote them, one of the big things about this is tone. And that's one of the reasons that in the overview I had talked about the idea of models. One of the best ways to explain tone to someone is to say it's like this existing work. Because tone is a weird thing. You can say comedy, and people will have, some people will think Hangover, some people will think Philadelphia some story, some people will think, something by like Spanglish or other James Brooks movies. There are many, many tones to comedy. There are many, many tones to an action movie. You can have a sort of comic bad boys action movie, or you can have a brutally frightening action movie. So it's very important to have in your mind a tone. And you know what your own tone is usually. And that's frankly why I didn't write it into these notes, because I know how I'm going to write it. But the models, the idea that, let me see if I can pull that up and show you again. 1 second. Okay, here we go, briefly. Okay, so in the overview, I've got this section called models. You could also say things this is like. Things this is ideally gonna be like. Okay, that's what models are. And also things to look at, as in, gee, I remember that being good. How did they do that? I'm going to look at that. These are all somewhat funny. They're all they're thrillers or crime stories, but they have a comic tone, a tone that is more character-based and less fear and crime and suspense-based. And that's really important to this project for me. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have the characters be the way they are, but it isn't necessarily everybody's cup of tea. So that note, like, are these people, are you just going to think these people are dumb? No, I hope not. I hope that does not come out that way. It is very easy to look down on your characters in a comedy. And it is very, very bad as far as I'm concerned. I don't think you should ever feel contempt for your characters. I think you always have to look at them as human as relatable, as empathetic. Like I've said before, I go through every story and I try and think about what each character wants and who they are and what they're trying to accomplish. And I try to see the world through their eyes. I strongly advise you to do the same thing, because that tends to be what makes stories good, is if the author has spent some time trying to imagine being in each character's shoes. Empathy. There is another note here that I really have to take seriously. Is it even legally possible to make someone the executor of your estate without their knowledge or consent? Damn good question. Let's put that in the outline so that I don't forget it. Okay, so let's just put that in here. Is it even legally possible for to do this? The answer is going to be, this note has become a part of my outline because it's a good thing and I need to take care of it. But the real answer to stuff like that, to the details, is going to be you make stuff up. Fiction is almost never real. It's got reality in it, but it doesn't obey all the rules of real life, and you're constantly breaking them. Medical, legal, physics even. I mean, honestly, for instance, just to have a small one, if you have a story with a car crash, like a car chase, and the car hits something and then it bounces off and then it goes away. In reality, when that car hits something, the airbag is going to go off. When the airbag goes off, it shuts the engine off. So therefore, every single car crash that you've seen in every single TV show and movie where like they're doing a chase and they like bang into some, like a fruit cart and knock it over and keep driving, that wouldn't happen. But it doesn't matter, because partly we're using the imagined language, the world of fantasy, the world of fiction. We are in a play world. And in that world, fun things happen. People can cling to helicopters and climb up onto them when they're flying and stuff. And even within more normal, non-action-y things, the reality of life, the legal reality of even like a small business deal or a divorce or an inheritance is enormous amounts of paperwork and sitting around and weeks going by, and you don't see that in the movies because it's just not fun. So I am going on the assumption that I'm going to make some things that aren't true. There is a movie, I think it's called Thank You for Smoking, with a really funny bit. It was in the trailer. So if you just watch the trailer for Thank You for Smoking, you should see this. They're trying to sell a movie company on sponsorship with like product placement. And so they're trying to get cigarette product placement into a space movie. And somebody points out that if you light a cigarette inside a spaceship, it will explode. And so the character says, yeah, we'll have to write a line for that. Like, thank God they invented the that deoxygenates the cigarette, danger. In other words, you make stuff up. You fix it within the reality of the story. So that's the first thing. Honestly, if you find that you're dealing with someone who's giving you notes or arguing with you about your script, and they believe that an absolute objective believability is important, you can't take them too seriously, because they are not understanding the workings of make-believe. And this is make-believe. But one of the most important things is making unbelievable things, unwise choices, foolishness, greed, all these characters, making them believable. That is what we are doing. Here, let's just put this up here. This is really important. Making unwise choices of your characters believable is incredibly important. not looking down on them, not saying, oh, these people are stupid and therefore they're funny, but to say, I understand that this person could act this way. Now, one of the things about that, though, is you have to make it believable. That is your job. Will everyone believe it? No. If you go to any movie and you talk to the audience afterwards, or when you're with your friends and you come out of a movie, some people will believe stuff and some people won't. Some people will empathize and some people won't. And there's no controlling that. There's no gaming it. There's no way to prevent it. It's just going to happen. If a large percentage of the audience finds it unbelievable, they may not like it. On the other hand, they may just not care. There's a lot of movies that are just ridiculous, and it doesn't matter. The question is, does it follow its own logic? And that is important. It is important that if some character is doing something, it not be totally out of character for the other scenes they are in. You can't just have them do stuff because it's a movie in one scene and be different in another scene. That is a problem. You would call that internal logic. The logic, not of real logic, the logic of the life within the story. Now, okay, lots of comments going on, so let's I'm just taking a quick breeze through them. Okay, so I'm just going to keep talking about this. Like I said, I want to try and make sure that we're talking here about the experience of getting notes. That's the point here. The point is not whether this note is right or that note is right. It's not about right or wrong. It's about the process of taking notes, of understanding that people have opinions and you want to hear them. Hello, Matthew. Okay. So one of the most important things I want to talk about here is there are a lot of ways to be a person. There's when somebody says, "Oh, a character wouldn't do that," a character will do whatever you tell him to do. The character is made up by you. The character does not exist. You are making up the character. If you say the character is going to sprout wings and fly away, you can do that. The only thing you can't do is have that come out of nowhere and have nothing else in the story that's like it. It has to, once again, follow the internal logic. But if a note is, people won't do that, people don't do that, think about that, because very often that is the bias of the note giver. What's happening is somebody will say like, well, I don't believe that a person would be so cruel when they're breaking up with someone. I don't believe that someone would fall in love so easily. They may not believe that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And it is to your advantage as writers to know as much about what happens with people as possible, especially people different than yourself. If you're the sort of person who falls in love easily, find out what it's like to not. Read stories about that. Read the news. If you just read the newspaper regularly, you will get so many stories of human beings doing all sorts of things, some good, some bad, but you're going to be able to get a grand sense of, wow, people are complex. Study psychology, study history, study sociology and anthropology. Understand that people are complicated. And the more you have of people in your head and your heart, the more you can write great characters and stories. One thing I want to talk about is if somebody says it's not believable, part of the question that you have to ask yourself is, did you make it believable? There are ways to make it believable. You don't want to overdo with like having the scene that just totally lays out, why and how you can do this. But you do want to take seriously if somebody's doing something unusual, that is a legitimate question. Okay. The other thing that I want to talk about here is valid other versions. Here's the thing. There are, if I assigned everyone currently watching this, we got like 15 people watching this right now. If I assigned all of you this outline and said, go take this outline and write this script, we would get 15 radically different scripts. Everybody is going to see it their own way. This is why there is art. This is why we like art. If we knew absolutely that everybody was going to write the same thing, why would we buy a new book? Why would we watch a new movie? The whole point is that you don't know how other people see and you want to find out. So the artist has to do their own work, which comes into conflict with this idea of getting notes. Not true, Mario. Absolutely not true. It's a really tricky balance because you need to stand by your choices, but everybody in the business thinks their job is to tell everybody else how it should change, which means telling their version. And those versions are valid. It is absolutely possible to have a different version, and both are good. Matthew's advice is nod, smile, tell them it's a fantastic idea, and then write what you're going to write anyway. Sometimes, yes, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Unless they are paying you, your job is to do your version. But that's unless they are paying you, okay? That's a very, very important issue that we have to talk about. Screenwriters do not generally work for free. Somebody asked this about spec scripts. I'm sorry, I think it was Maria actually, about a week ago. What is the difference between a spec script and a sample script? Sample script is a script that is used as a sample. A spec script is a speculative, as in you are not being paid to write it. That's what spec script means. A spec script is an original script that you are writing because you think it's going to be loved and paid for. You're speculating by writing it. But the truth is, most screenwriters try to spend their time writing things that they have been paid for. And therefore, which is unusual, by the way, it's almost the only place where you get that. If you're an established novelist, you might get an advance on your next book. But the truth is, very few art forms do the artist say, I'm not creating this until somebody pays me in advance. That's frankly weird. It's frankly wrong. What the hell? Okay? Why would a bunch of artists sit around and say, I'm not going to put my time and effort into creating until somebody pays me a lot of money? Seriously. You're doing it because you like it, because you think it's good. So that is the first thing to remember. Screenwriters are this bizarre subculture of writers. Anyway, the thing that you want to do, let's talk about this in a sort of listy, logical way. When you're getting notes, the first and most important thing you have to ask about this situation is, who has the power? By the way, I can see there's like this whole conversation going on in the chat, and I can't keep up with it because I'm talking, but I'm fascinated. Anyway, I will get into that in a minute. When you are getting notes, the biggest question is, who has the power? And this basically means who is paying. If no one is paying, then you have the power. It's yours. You own it. But if you are working for anyone, you have actually given up the copyright to your work, and they own it. They have the power. They can take it away from you and give it to someone else. That happens all the time to screenwriters. This is another bizarre thing about being a screenwriter. Unlike every other art, people can actually, it's like if somebody saw a Degas painting and said, oh man, I don't like the way you did that sleeve, They take the painting away from Degas, give it to another painter and say, put a different arm on there. Yeah, that's how that works, okay? So if you are in a situation where you do not own this property, you are working for money, you have to take the note. You can try and convince them otherwise, but after a very short time, they are going to get tired of your arguing. So if you are being paid, you have to find a way to take the note. The next thing you have to think about is, what is your goal? What is your goals? What is your goal in asking for these notes? Like, why did you give them? If you're asking just because you want people to tell you it's great, think about that before you do it, because you're unlikely to get that. If your goal is you honestly don't know how people will react to it, then honestly listen to how they react to it. Don't take any one person's advice more than others unless that's your goal. If your goal is, I am writing this script to please my uncle, then your uncle's notes are the only ones that matters. Think about what you're trying to do. Usually what you're trying to do is see how much of what you imagined would work did work. And the proportions on that are going to be, sometimes only 50-50. And that may be the best you can get. Ideally, you want to work it up there into the 75s maybe, but nothing is going to work for everybody. The other thing you need to think about is, what is their goal in giving the note? Because different people have different beliefs and different reasons for why they are telling you what they're telling you. They may believe that science fiction action films are the greatest thing, and if you wrote a little personal drama, they're going to be like, well, it's kind of boring. But it may not be boring to the people who like that kind of work. So you need to check what their goal is. Also, very often their goal is, will this make me money personally? The reader is reading it because they are in a production company or they are doing coverage for something. And the question for them is, does this help me? And very often, whatever you wrote it for isn't going to help them. And so therefore, they don't like it. Very often, when you get professional coverage, there is a checklist of whatever it is that they have learned, and they are checking you against it. You may not have learned those things. You may not agree with those things. I frequently got notes where somebody simply misunderstood the script. They thought I was trying to do one thing, and I was trying to do something else. So their notes were not valuable. But the other thing I will say about notes is, pay attention to how you always react. I'm going to move this a little so you can see it. If you always react the same way to different people giving you notes, that's probably you, not the notes and not the person giving it. If you always react the same way, if you're always, oh my God, everything I wrote is terrible, or you're always, they don't know what they're talking about. If you always have the same reaction, no matter what people are saying to you, that's you. Pay attention to that, because if you are always reacting the same way, it means you're not actually listening. It means that you have something personal going on, some personal engagement, which is why I say, what is your goal for looking for the notes? If you're not genuinely trying to get criticism, don't show the stuff until you think it's great, and then don't show it for notes. Okay, so these are my notes on getting notes for the moment. I will eventually do a video on it, but I just wanted to talk to you about this because I found the notes that I got really interesting, but I am not going to take most of them, partly because I believe some of them are just thinking in a different tone. The person who wrote the notes was thinking in terms of legal logic, in terms of the people doing the best thing for them in terms of proper social behavior. My people are not going to be that way. As I've explained, Xena is driven by greed. She is going to push things in a certain direction. Norman is going to be taking this action because because he's authentically putting himself at risk and doing something dangerous because he cares about another person unexpectedly. This is his hero side coming out and making him do something foolish. It's like someone who jumps into the frozen lake to save the person who fell through the ice. Is that a smart move? No. May they both die? Yes. In this case, they won't. So that's sort of where I'm at on those notes, I think. Let me just check. The question about whether or not these people should report the crime stealing from Mad's house. Let's remember, people commit little crimes all the time. People who commit a lot of little crimes all the time, and they rationalize them. They say the person deserved it. They say it's not that big a deal. No harm will really come to them. The insurance will pay for it, whatever. In this particular case, they're thinking it's a woman who doesn't understand the importance and value of this. And all they're doing is, in theory, sneaking into her house when she's not there and taking out something that she doesn't care about. So, yeah, they don't feel like it's that big a deal. Just like somebody will cross the street against the light. It's, I can see there's no cars coming. I'm going to do it. So that's sort of my take on that issue. Why don't they take the crime more seriously? Because they don't take it seriously, and because they have other emotional goals and needs. As far as why is Madeline so upset about the death of a man she had nothing to do with, a couple of reasons. And truthfully, yeah, you could not care, or you could. You could care. You could. This happens. Sometimes people care about the fact that they didn't care. Sometimes you can be really shaken up by recognizing that someone that you loved passionately is no longer important to you. That can really mess with your mind. And what's happening here is something is coming at her out of the blue. Something that she had successfully buried has been unearthed violently. And so she's reacting to that. Having done that, frankly, as far as why does she get drunk, honestly, if I was called to the scene of anybody's murder, let alone someone I loved, even if it was a long time ago, that can sort of shake you up. And she simply, not intentionally, it's not like she's sitting down and saying, I remember Paris, I'm going to blot out my memories of that. She's just like, I could use a drink. And then pretty soon she could use another, and pretty soon we got a story going. So that's how I personally view those particular notes. Okay, well, we've gone a long time today, and meanwhile, everybody's weighing in on these comments. Please read the comments in the chat. There's a lot of conversation here. I'm just quickly skimming it to see if there's anything here that I need to answer. Is there okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to quickly grab some of these. Sorry. You know what? If you asked a question here and I didn't answer it, which is very likely, please put it in the comments or send me a message directly, because I honestly don't want to have everybody sit here and watch me read. So I'm going to say so long for today. Thank you for being here. This has been terrific, and I will be reading that chat later when I get a chance. All right, take care.